It's one of those things, but I ask you, can we do with the black paku? It is now my pleasure to welcome up Louise Landris, who's going to be introducing our guest for the day. So please welcome Louise.
The old fashioned. Oh, so much to remember here. I've got notes. Morning, fellow Toastmasters, guests, everybody else, and Zoom in the room. Zoomers, thanks. Remember, we have them here, and welcome to you all. Right, it's a real treat this morning to introduce our guest, Laura Bruce. The original plan was to get Laura along to tell us how to write a funny speech, because she won the District 72 Humorous speech during COVID when we went online very, very quickly. However, the dates didn't line up, and we've had our humorous speech before Laura could come along. So today she's going to tell us how to win online, which is appropriate as our speeches contests are all going online. Laura's a Canadian. Whoop, whoop, Canadians in the house. She grew up, we have 4 in the room this morning. Laura grew up in Niagara in southern Ontario. And in the past 70 years, sorry, Laura, 20 years, she's lived in Ireland and Scotland and a little bit of time in England. But why I brought the notes up is because she's a demon Toastmaster. She joined Toastmasters in 2014 in Scotland, and she served as VP membership, treasurer, and president of her club. Last year, she was assistant division director of Division S, all of Scotland. And in 2018, she was elected PR manager for District 71, the UK and Ireland. Lots of places. She enjoys Toastmasters speech contests, learning how to develop as a speaker, and she's currently the VP PR of Christchurch Women's Club. So we've slotted Laura's speech into a project today, because why wouldn't you? She's going to be doing the presentation mastery pathway once she's nailed her DTM, which she's just about to achieve. And we've picked project question and answer session, which is a level 4 presentation mastery, because you're allowed to jiggle them around, so you might not know that. So it's going to be a real treat to welcome Laura Bruce with the art of speaking online, how to win and other stories, how to win something online and other bits and pieces. Please welcome up Laura Bruce.
Thank you very much, Louise. It is a distinct pleasure to be here. And in keeping with the theme in our grammarian today, when Louise kindly invited me to speak, she said it wasn't a task for the meek. Her club meets early morning. It comes with a health warning. Voters is not for Toastmasters who like sleep. So it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to do a little bit of research about your club before I came along. I didn't realize you had a Wikipedia page. It let me know that when you were established, who the founders of the club were. And I didn't realize it says the official Toastmasters Club of Christchurch Insomniacs. So congratulations. So when we talk about online competing, we're all wading into foreign territory, aren't we? This strange new world we're in, where Toastmasters contests are not a place to shoot the breeze with your friends, but rather a place to be holed up in some dingy small bedroom in your house at an awkward time of day with horrible lighting and bad acoustics. It's terrible. But unfortunately, it is the way it is, and we have to get to grips with it. So why would you want to compete online? Well, you have to. So if you want to compete, this is the way you have to do it for now. But the bigger question is, why compete? When I was a first brand new wet behind the ears Toastmaster in November 2014, I, through some strange coincidence, won the table topics contest at my club, and then at area, and then at division. And there I was at the district conference. First time, didn't know what was going on to compete in table topics. And it was in Belfast where I used to live. I thought, great chance to go back to Belfast. And I went for the whole conference. So it was a weekend conference. Saturday morning, I was so keen. I was up at 8 o'clock for the first workshop at the Europa Hotel, and it was led by a distinguished Toastmaster who's also a rocket scientist, Bob Ferguson, DTM. Fascinating guy, and he talked about being an engineer and his approach to competing. And that contest I was in, I've referred to his notes so many times. His presentation was called Competition, the Driver for Excellence. And that inspired me and continues to inspire me in my journey. And if you go to his website now, you can download that presentation from bobferguson.co.uk and listen to the same words I heard that Saturday morning in November 2014. Competition encourages us to do our best and to see how good we could be. And that's why I would encourage every Toastmaster to take part in every opportunity to compete, because you never know where it's going to take you. It took me to a district conference. It was wonderful. I made so many friends who continued to be friends, all because I happened to jump in that day when they said, oh, we're doing the table topics contest today. So there you go. I think it's a great thing. So our theme today is winning, which is very appropriate, because I don't think you should go into a contest unless you actually have the desire to win. You should take it seriously out of respect for your other competitors. We don't have to prepare for a table topics contest. We don't have to prepare for the speech evaluation contest, although it's good if you know the things. But one thing that we can all do in these types of contests is to look at the judging criteria. So become acquainted with that so you know what you're meant to do. Things like including a conclusion. Simple. How many points? You get points for that. So know what the criteria are for the contest you're going into. So there are different ways of approaching online competing. And I've divided my speech into two parts: tech and technique. And I think if you get both of those pretty good, you stand a good chance of faring well in the competition. So let's start with tech. Tech. What is your goal when it comes to tech? Your goal is to create an experience that is as close to the real life experience of a contest, the traditional contest, as possible. Well, how do you do this? Well, you have to have the right tech. So you want something that enables clear, uninterrupted communication. You want things that give crystal clear audio, and you want effective visuals. And you want all of that delivered with minimum impedance. And impedance, of course, I think is resistance electrically. So you want the minimum of interference in your message getting across. So first, I recommend using a computer, not a phone or a tablet, if you can, just because there's more controls available. Secondly, I recommend using a wired internet connection. Raise your hand if you're familiar with what a wired internet connection looks like. Very good. So many people, they don't know that there's an alternative to Wi-Fi. If you want a good signal, use a wired connection. You can get it out of the back of your router. There's a little thing that looks like a phone plug, and you can get an adapter for your laptop to plug that into your thing. So there you go. You want your computer to be fully charged. So you want to use a laptop or a desktop computer. Simple. Louise is laughing. But simple things can trip us up, even though they're simple. You want to use a fully charged computer, and I would recommend using an external microphone if you can. I actually got a microphone a couple of months ago to record an audio book, and it's been really good for Zoom meetings. Plugs directly into my computer, very simple. So the third thing I recommend, and we have one here, is an external camera. We've all probably, if we've got a recent laptop, the last 10 years or so, they've got a camera built in. But this inexpensive Logitech camera and others like it are streets ahead of the ones that come built in to your laptop. So if you want to crystal clear image to go with your crystal clear audio, you can't beat one of these. They're $50, $60 depending on whether or not you're getting them during lockdown or not. And then when it comes to using your camera, get it up at eye level. How many of us have seen these people talking to us from underneath their chin on their laptop because they've got the thing tilted back at the angle. They've got the built-in camera showing us their double chin. Not nice, not pretty. Don't subject the judges or anybody else who's watching to a view of your neck. Try and get the camera up. If it takes putting it up on a box or putting it up on a chair, just to get it all at the right angle. Again, we're aiming for something that is as close to real life as possible, because that's where the enjoyment is. It's not listening to some tech presentation with somebody reading their slides off the screen. You know, you want somebody that's like a real speech. So camera angle, unless I stand in front of Jackie, you know, a foot away from her and standing up, you know, it's not gonna, that low camera angle under the neck is not gonna be like the real life experience. One of the things I read recently was about, it was a maxim somebody said, things often go wrong, but if you arrive early, many of them can be rectified. And I thought, how true is this for competing online and having to use all of this tech? Get set up early. Be in the Zoom room early. Things will go wrong. There will be an opportunity to test your mic, and test your camera, and all of those things. So take advantage of that. And if things go wrong, have a backup. Maybe this is when you resort to your tablet or your partner's computer and you sign in with somebody else's name, but at least you have something to fall back on. So do everything you can to get the best tech you can. Borrow a camera if you don't have one. Borrow one from somebody. I borrowed one from somebody for the Humorous speech contest at District. I also made sure I had a nice clear background behind me. I chose to dress in clothing that contrasted with the background, and I also set up external lighting. So I took 2 floor lamps, gooseneck floor lamps, put them on the dining room table, put my computer up on a chair, clip the camera onto the top of the computer. I mean, it looked crazy, but it gave me 2 double doors behind me, which were painted white, which was a nice neutral background. I wore a navy top with a sort of giraffe print in navy and white. So there was a bit of contrast, a bit of interest there, and I stood out from my background. I had good lighting. I didn't have some ceiling light silhouetting me from behind. So all of these things probably contributed to me being unimpeded in my presentation. I also stood up. I'll get to that in terms of the technique. So that's the tech part. Quickly, are there any questions about the tech side of things?
When you did the contest, did they set parameters around where you're allowed to stand?
They sort of did. They sort of basically said, don't go outside the field of vision of whatever computer you're using. And some people chose to present sitting down. One of my friends in Wellington was in the contest. He chose to present sitting down, and he had a lot of facial expressions. So that suited him. For me, I wanted to be able to use gesture. So the guidelines were fairly fluid. Obviously, don't go off the screen. That was it.
Excuse me, I'm just going to jump in. I forgot to say in the intro, this is a Q&A project, so do feel free to queue.
Yeah. Thanks, Louise. So that's the tech side. So the next part of my speech, the second half, is tech and technique, right? So I talked about creating a presentation that is as much like a real life speech as possible. Well, how do we characterize a real life speech? There's certain things that we do. We try to build rapport with the audience. We try to make eye contact and engage with them. This is the sort of thing, it's a little harder to do it in an online facility, but you can still do your best. So you can look into the camera. You can think about my friends from District 71 that are watching now. And I can say, hi, you guys, thank you for coming along. You know, so just try to make that connection. The next thing you want to do when you're talking about technique, obviously in a prepared speech, humorous or international, you want to start with an effective speech. Nothing's going to give you an advantage that will exceed starting with an effective speech. So you want to write it well, you want to practice it, you want to be prepared, obviously. I practice my speech every day, 2 or 3 times before the contest. And I was confident when I went in that I knew my speech. You want to have a clear goal for your speech, inform, persuade, entertain, depending what it is. And you want to have it well structured. And ideally, you want a speech that makes a point, because a speech that makes a point engages your audience. There's got to be something in it for them, right? It's not just a one-way thing. So I talked about the judging criteria. You want to know what those are, so you can just make sure you've got a conclusion. Simple things like that. You've got a good structure. You're using vocal variety. You're making eye contact. You're engaging the audience. You're getting them to unfold their arms, Mr. Premier. You have to intimidate them sometimes. It's just the way it is. And speaking of which, one of the keys, I think, in establishing rapport is to try and get an early laugh, especially in humorous speech. You want to get an early laugh. It tells the audience, much like when you're doing stand-up comedy, that they're in safe hands. Because lots of times when a speech starts, you're nervous for the person. You're empathetic. You want it to go well. You don't want them to fall on their face. You give your audience an early laugh and they relax. They say, oh, I'm in safe hands now. I can just sit back and enjoy this. So I think that's a good strategy. You want to do your best. Take a deep breath. And remember, it's supposed to be fun, right? You want to enjoy yourself while you're up there. It's not work. It's supposed to be pleasurable for you and for the audience. So if you approach it with an attitude of, I've prepared, I've organized the tech, I've done my best, written a good speech, now I'm here to have fun. I think it takes the pressure off. It comes through in your presentation that you want to have fun, that you're there to have fun. So you can't go wrong with having fun. Everybody likes that. So finally, I think about gestures. You want to use gestures and you want to make the most of the speaking area that you have. You will have in an online competition setup looked for what the parameters are in terms of the visual field of the camera. You want to have good audio. You want to project your voice. You want to make the most of vocal variety. That's a very bad example. But again, just one more way to bring your speech to life. Use pauses. Let your audience take on board what you've said to them, especially in a speech where you're trying to persuade. I think those are all of my things. Yes, I think I've covered everything off. And now, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, what questions do you have? Louise.
Always. Did you have friends in the room? Like, how do you pause and, by yourself?
Yeah, practice. Right. Yeah, practice. This was a humorous speech, 5 to 7 minutes. It was a prepared speech. So I had done it at my club. I had done it again at my club. I had done it for family and friends. I had subjected people to this. But on the day, I was in the room on my own. And in fact, the new rules state you're not meant to have an audience there, so that you're not having laughter or other things coming through on your thing. It gives people an unfair advantage if you can't have anybody there. So yeah, you're on your own. You just got to practice. Another question over here. Yes.
I want a bigger screen for the speech. If you can get a bigger screen, that gives us more feeling of, because it's online, right?
Yeah, a bigger screen would be good, yeah. It's hard too because your camera often is not in the same line of sight as you on the camera. So it's hard to know where to look so that it looks like you're looking at the audience. So there's also that. If you are using an external camera, you want to position it as close to your screen because our tendency is to look at ourselves on the screen. And I had to break myself of that when I was doing the contest and look at the camera. Yeah. Yes.
In terms of that, like there's a camera right here that you're looking at. It's probably, and if we had it so that we knew, okay, from here to here, I can't go any further, but not even have a computer, only talk to the camera. And then that would, I mean, you obviously have to look at the camera.
Yeah.
And so there's no distraction of looking down, looking up to see, you know.
Yeah. Well, one
just,
of the reasons you're looking at the camera is for the lights. So you get your timing lights. So you don't want to miss out on those, and unless you've got somebody in the room holding up the cards for you, which you're not allowed. You're going to need to be able to see your screen.
You've got a timing light on our cell phone.
You can use a timing light on your cell phone, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, one question. What was your experience like with conducting a speech without having that audience feedback over Zoom, especially in the humorous context?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. One of the things you have to remember is in a humorous speech, ideally, your audience will be laughing. One of the things you don't want to do, a thing a lot of trainee comedians do, is called stepping on the laugh. You don't want to step on the laugh. So if you've done it in front of a live audience, like I did with my club, I knew where they were meant to laugh. They didn't always laugh where I thought they would laugh. And they laughed in places I didn't expect them to laugh. So I did an audio recording of it. And I went back and I listened. I went, oh, they laughed here. Pause. They laughed here. Pause. So give it like a 1, 2, 3 beat to let them laugh. Even in the international speech contest, you're going to hopefully, only if you want to win, as one of my friends used to say, only do this if you want to win. You're going to have some laughs in the international speech contest. So you're going to want to give people a place to laugh, because otherwise they censor themselves. They stop laughing because they don't trust that you're going to give them a chance to laugh before you start speaking again. So very important. Thank you for asking that. One more question. Thank you, Alana.
I kind of like wanted to ask all the questions that everyone else was asking, but I don't know, maybe I'm just old. I'm
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I'm quite a people person, so I thought, oh, I feel so lonely and alienated standing up there without that audience, because some of us feed off that audience. I love crowds, and here I am being the, I don't know, the one person rather than being a whole crowd. So how did it feel for you teaching? Just kind of like, not rejection or, you know, all those kind of terrible feelings, but I thought, I actually don't want to enter a competition because I don't want to do it on Zoom because I'm a people person.
Yeah.
So what did it feel for you? And, you know, just more the internal stuff. But also, is this going to go on forever? Because this, if I don't want to enter a competition, I have to do it on Zoom because I like being around people. You know, is this going to go on forever?
It's a very good question. Yeah. When we had the district contests for the Humorous, it was back in May. It was the 26th of May, so we were still in lockdown. And yes, it's a very strange environment. I love district conferences. I go to them because I like meeting my friends, making new friends, and attending workshops. So to have none of that benefit of the district events at the end of the year and just a contest over a computer and it's not great. But it's still an opportunity to develop as a Toastmaster. So I just have to imagine the people are going to enjoy my speech. They're going to laugh. I'm going to develop as a Toastmaster. Maybe other people watching me will learn something. Perhaps I could inspire somebody else to enter a contest who might not have. So, you know, what are our key things, the Toastmasters things: respect, integrity, service, and excellence. Think of it as service. You're maybe inspiring somebody else. You're not getting the benefit you might normally get, but hopefully you're being a good role model for other Toastmasters. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It's been a pleasure. And if there's anything you have to ask, you catch me after the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
I just want to say, on behalf of all of us, to Laura, absolutely stunning presentation. Great to have it, and just fantastic. And I really appreciate her coming, taking the time out of a busy schedule to come and share her thoughts with us, share her experiences. And it means that we get a chance to learn about these things. I don't know about you, but I took a lot of notes as she was talking, and I'll benefit from that going forward, not just today. But just leave you with one thought in mind. Take you back, it's 21 years now, 21-year anniversary. And I'm in the final, the district final of the prepared speech competition. Sean was with me at the time, and we were in Wellington. And I had practiced, I reckon that I had given that speech before I actually, and this reinforces what Laura was saying, before I actually stood up and gave that speech, I had given it in excess of 120 times. Not just to audiences I'm talking about, but in my head, going through it over and over, because your brain doesn't know the difference between actual and imagined experience. And what it does, what doing that does, that preparation does, is it builds your experiential base. So you get better at it, because that's the thing. The more you do something, the better you get at it. Finish the story. Didn't get first, got second. What that did was inspired me to go on and win some gold after that. Give that to you, keep it in the back of your mind. Winning's great sometimes, as long as it's done the way it should be done. Have a break, and we'll see you back. And how long have we got? 5 minutes. Thank you.